Welcome. So good to be with you on this Wednesday as we get together for a little midweek Bible study and devotional time. So glad you've taken some time out of your week, out of your day to join us to dive into God's Word and hopefully be uplifted and encouraged by what He has to say to us. And hopefully your year is off to a good start. Happy New Year to all of you. We're a weekend, exactly a weekend. Last week was New Year's Day, and so hopefully your New Year's is off to a good start. And as most of us do this time of year, as the new year begins, we make those resolutions, right? Or maybe you don't call them resolutions, but I think all of us, most of us, hopefully all of us, though, have plans to, even if we don't call them resolutions, have plans to do things better or do more of this or more of that, or maybe less of this and less of that, and to make those improvements as we begin the new year. And for the most part, we start with a lot of enthusiasm, right? And a lot of energy, but as the days turn into weeks, the excitement and enthusiasm begins to wane and fade. Obstacles arise, life gets busy, we begin to lose focus. Perhaps that's why the Bible over and over emphasizes the need for perseverance, energy, action, enthusiasm. Those are good things in short bursts, certainly, but there's also a call for a more important attribute in our lives, which is, again, perseverance. Verses like Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, which says, let us not grow weary of doing good. Don't grow weary in doing the right things and the good things, for in due season we will reap a harvest, right? If we do not give up. In other words, there are times when we will do things and we may not reap a harvest in the moment, but we don't grow weary of doing those things because we know in time we will reap that harvest if we don't give up, if we stick to it. And so enthusiasm, again, is good. Certainly passion is needed, but it's not just enthusiasm and passion in the short term, but it's being able to keep that passion and focus alive and well over the long haul. Perseverance is the ability to keep going even when it's hard, to stay committed even when the road gets tough. And it's not about perfection, it's about persistence, because the Christian journey requires grit, right? Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 tells us to run with perseverance the race marked out for us, that it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. You think about those great heroes of faith that the Hebrew writer talks about in the chapter right before what we read in Hebrews chapter 12. He talks about them in Hebrews chapter 11, and he talks about all these great heroes of the faith, right? And they didn't achieve God's promises overnight. They had to work through them, persevere over the long haul. Noah, for instance, worked for years to build an ark. Abraham waited decades for God to fulfill his promise to give him and his wife Sarah a son. And over the examples go on and on. These men and women kept going, kept persevering, not because it was easy. In fact, even in the face of opposition and difficulty, but first and foremost, and at the core of everything, they kept going, they persevered because they trusted in God's faithfulness. Perseverance is the day by day decision to day after day keep trusting in God and moving forward in his direction. I love what James chapter 1 verses 2 through 4 says. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Just reading that, you're like, how do I consider that pure joy? Well, James is about to tell us. He says, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And let perseverance finish its work. There's a purpose to it, right? So that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. In other words, trials aren't just obstacles, but they're opportunities. God uses them to refine us and to build us into deeper trust and reliance and ultimately obedience in him. So let me just give you some practical steps, and myself as well, some practical steps to increase our grit and our perseverance in the new year. First, set goals with God in mind. Ask God to guide your plans for the year. Proverbs 16, chapter 16, verse 3 says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. When your goals align with his will, you'll find strength to persevere. Second, remember the why. When challenges come, remind yourself of the purpose behind your actions, of the reasons why you're doing what you're doing, whether it's growing spiritually or loving your family better or serving others. Keeping the goal in sight will fuel your perseverance. Thirdly, rely on God's strength. I've already kind of alluded to that in a couple of those verses too, but right? If Philippians chapter 4, verse 13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You don't have to do this alone. God's power is made perfect in our weakness. I love that passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 that Paul talks about. But and one of the things he says is that his power is made perfect in weakness and in our reliance on him. Fourth, celebrate progress, not perfection. One, because you're never going to be perfect, right? Perseverance and grit doesn't mean never stumbling. It doesn't mean always getting it right. It means getting back up when you do fall, because you will fall. You're not going to be perfect. So don't try to be perfect, but well, you are trying to be perfect. Let me rephrase that. You are trying to be perfect. God says, be perfect as I am perfect. Be holy as I am holy. The strive is for perfection, but we also recognize that we are flawed. That's why we need Jesus and we need his grace. And so celebrate progress, not perfection. Celebrate those small victories along the way of you following in the footsteps of Jesus. And when you do get it wrong, get back up and continue following on. And then lastly, fifth, encourage others and be encouraged. Surround yourself with people who are going to cheer you on in your walk with the Lord. As Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25 reminds us, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. And so as you step into this new year, ask yourself, where do I need to show some grit in my life? What areas of my life require more perseverance, where I haven't been pushing through some things, not in our own strength, but in God's strength? And so, as the last question, how can I rely more fully on God to keep going even when it's hard? Ask yourself those questions. And no matter what this new year may hold, may God help us to walk the journey with Him with perseverance and grit. And when we face the challenges that inevitably will come our way, may we be reminded of His strength and his faithfulness. May we not grow weary. May we never grow weary in doing good, but may we trust that he will bring fruit in due season if we don't give up. Hope you have a blessed day. God bless.